In the Netherlands, the International Court of Justice holds hearings on the legal consequences of Israel's occupation of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem since 1967. In Venezuela, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met with his counterpart Ivan Gil and Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez on his second stop of his Latin American tour. And in the United Kingdom, activists rallied in front of the London High Court before the final appeal of journalist Julian Assange against his extradition to the United States. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The International Court of Justice, based in The Hague City, holds a hearing on the legal consequences of Israel's occupation of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem since 1967. More than 50 countries, including nations denouncing the Israeli genocide against Palestine, such as Cuba, China, Russia, and Egypt, and Tel Aviv allies, such as the United States, will present arguments before the judges. On the next days, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Bolivia, and Belize are expected to take the stand to present their conclusions. In this context, the South African representative denounced that Israel is subjecting the Palestinian population to a system of apartheid in violation of international law. In this context, Vusi Mandosela, South African ambassador to the Netherlands, condemned Israel's apartheid against Palestinians and called for its immediate end.
We as South Africans sense, see, hear and feel to our core the inhumane discriminatory policies and practices of the Israeli regime as an even more extreme form of the apartheid that was institutionalized against black people in my country, coincidentally from the year 1948, and which lasted until 1994. Moreover, it is clear that Israel's illegal occupation is also being administered in breach of the prohibition of the crime of apartheid. It is indistinguishable from settler colonialism, which has no place in the 21st century. Israeli apartheid must end.
In Palestine, Israel continued its genocidal aggression against Gaza. Occupation forces committed 9 massacres in the last 24 hours, murdering 103 Palestinians and injuring 142 others. Gaza's health ministry reported that the death toll rose to 29,195 since October 7th. The Israeli offensive has so far left 69,170 people injured. Many victims still remain under the rubble as the occupation forces deliberately prevents ambulances and civil defense crews from reaching them. The health ministry also revealed that 18 patients from Nasser Medical Complex have been evacuated to field hospitals, with 118 others still inside the hospital, emphasizing that the situation inside the complex has exceeded a catastrophe and constitutes a direct threat to the lives of patients and medical staff. On Tuesday, a United Nations report highlighted that in Palestine, the death of several children due to the high levels of child malnutrition puts the population of the Gaza Strip on alert. In this sense, after 20 weeks since the beginning of the genocide perpetrated by Israel, the report adds that scarcity of food and drinking water seriously affected the nutritional state of thousands of Gazan children, victims of the siege of the Tel Aviv regime. According to figures presented by the United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East, 1 out of every 6 children under 2 years of age in the north of the enclave suffers from acute malnutrition. On the other hand, the entity also showed that before the beginning of the conflict, lack of weight in Gaza was uncommon. However, with the passing of the weeks and with the increase of the aggressions, it has dangerously increased. Dozens of activists protested in central Jerusalem on Monday, demanding a ceasefire in Gaza and an immediate agreement to free Israeli hostages. In this sense, demonstrators gathered in front of the Israeli parliament, known as the Knesset, up to the office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and demanded an immediate agreement to end the conflict in Gaza. It is worth noting that the Netanyahu administration is rejected by Israeli citizens because, according to the public opinion, it has abandoned the hostages. On the other hand, social activists reported that during the mobilization, some demonstrators were detained by police. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shaath warned against the dire consequences facing Palestinians in Rafah in Israel if Israel launches a ground invasion.
The world must prevent the invasion of Rafah. Rafah is now an explosive container, and the invasion of Rafah means the fall of thousands of martyrs. Israel must be prevented from executing this aggression, and citizens must be allowed to return to their homes in the northern and central Gaza Strip.
The Prime Minister also said that Tel Aviv continues to withhold all funds.
Israel is still withholding all the clearing funds, and up to this moment it has not transferred any amounts to the United States, and nothing like this has happened over the past 30 years. On the other hand, it was agreed with Norway to transfer the amount we sent to the Gaza Strip to a special account in Norway.
On Tuesday, the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America and the People's Trade Treaty, through an official statement, reiterated its condemnation of the Israeli genocide in Gaza and expressed solidarity with the Brazilian president, who was declared persona non grata in Israel for demonstrating against the administration of Benjamin Netanyahu. In this way, the organization Alba TCP, for its acronym in Spanish, declared their member states expressed solidarity with the President of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, who was declared persona non grata in Israel for demonstrating against the genocide in Gaza and calling for a ceasefire. On the other hand, on behalf of the regional bloc, recognizes Lula as a leader of America and a true defender of human rights, international law, and respect for the self-determination of peoples. In the meantime, it demands a solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict through dialogue based on a two-state solution, allowing Palestine to exercise its right to self-determination as an independent and sovereign state. In this regard, Alba TCP reiterates its call to the international community demanding an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. A building collapsed in a southern suburb of Beirut late Monday, killing 4 people and injuring 3 others as search operations continued for more people under the rubble. Among the 4 fatal victims were 2 women, a man and a child. Also, it is estimated that 17 people are still trapped under the debris. The building that collapsed in the suburb of Khoe Ifat Monday night crumbled after days of heavy rain in Lebanon. Local officials said the building was not considered safe, and the municipality had ordered the 4-story building evacuated 2 years ago out of concerns due to the weakness of its foundation. Despite the order, the owner of the building rented apartments to Syrian families. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Venezuela, as part of his second stop on his Latin American tour, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met his counterpart Ivan Hill and Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez. Rodriguez welcomed the Russian top diplomat following his arrival in Caracas. Both sides discussed key issues of bilateral cooperation and interaction in the international arena, as well as analyzed the global and regional outlook. After the foreign ministers of Russia and Venezuela reviewed the state of bilateral relations between Moscow and Caracas and their development in the coming years. The Russian foreign minister stressed that Venezuela is one of Russia's closest friends in the region and the world, and both countries maintain relations of strategic collaboration. In turn, Venezuela Foreign Minister Iván Gil stressed that Venezuela and Russia are two countries that are victims in the international arena of the illegal, irrational, illegitimate implementation of unilateral coercive measures. Lavrov will later meet President Nicolas Maduro. After his stay in Venezuela, the Russian foreign minister will travel to Brazil to participate in a G20 ministerial meeting. Previously, the Russian foreign minister held a bilateral meeting with Cuban President Miguel DiazCanel during his official visit to Havana. The Cuban president thanked Lavrov and the Russian Federation for the empathy shown in the face of difficulties the Caribbean island is experiencing. For his part, the Russian foreign minister said that during the meeting decisions were taken to strengthen mutual cooperation that at the economic and commercial levels. He also announced that given the growing number of Russian tourists in the island, the option of direct flights between Moscow and Havana will be expanded. On Tuesday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro held a meeting with the Algerian Minister of Energy and Mining, Mohamed Arkab. The meeting took place in Caracas, where they discussed the achievements in energy cooperation between both countries, as well as their people's union and the social welfare of the nations. The meeting took place within the framework of the visit of the Algerian Minister of Energy, who since Monday has been holding meetings with Venezuelan authorities, among them the Minister of Petroleum, Pedro Rafael Tellechea, with whom he discussed the strategic cooperation between Caracas and Algeria. Venezuela and Algeria have signed different cooperation agreements in strategic fields such as political, cultural, energy, commercial, scientific, among others. Venezuela continues to strengthen its coffee production by exporting to the Asian market. A farm recently exported 2,800 kilos of coffee to Japan while improving its processes and preparing for this year's production. Our colleague Leonel Retamal from Venezuela on the move with the story.
This is the coffee harvest season. The fruit known as cherry is carefully picked on the basis of its appropriate color, which indicates its optimum maturity and the full development of its qualities.
We pick up the ripe cherries.
Every year at this time, by December, we start the stripping until March, picking coffee, God willing. We have only had 3 harvests this year, and we have about 5 more to come, for the grains to be as they are now.
This process is repeated throughout the country, and only in the state of Miranda, neighboring the capital city of Caracas, some 190 farms are harvesting. Venezuela has 220,000 hectares of coffee plantations, especially in the west, where the production is concentrated. In the plantation of La Peñita, they harvest different varieties of coffees with differentiated processes according to the profile they want to produce.
The best cup of coffee a person can drink comes out from fruits with optimum maturity. These are coffees that exceed 85 points if we manage to do a good post-harvest. When we pick up beans that are not quite ripe yet, it's a commercial kind of coffee which point between 78 or 79. It wouldn't be a specialty coffee, however. All the coffee we produce here in La Peñita are always around 84 to 85 points. That's washed coffee, not including specialty coffees, which is subjected to a different process.
With the harvest, they dry the grains, which is another critical stage in the process. They stir their grains up every half hour to reduce the humidity and prevent its contamination. In the specialty market, that is to say the high-quality market, the history and care of each lot is evaluated.
This year, La Peñita had the blessing and the great opportunity to export its first lot to Japan. It was 2,800 kilos of coffee, not only by La Peñita. There were also two other producers that were able to bring their coffee. Our coffee was tasted by experts. In Japan, our coffee went through the heavy materials testing, and thank God our coffee passed through all the big doors, and now they are requesting more coffee this year.
Venezuela is training professionals to improve all stages of the coffee production process, from its cultivation to the drinker's cup. In this laboratory, they evaluate the quality of coffee and seek to improve the processes to increase the export supply.
So far, about 42 million kilos have been exported since 2017. We have been exporting mostly commercial coffee. But as a result of the International Coffee Meeting and as a result of Venezuela's increased experience with specialty coffee, a new product has come out. A new demand has come out, and now there is a whole market asking for this new product, which is the Venezuelan specialty coffee.
The renovation of more than 10,000 hectares, together with the new possibilities of exporting to China and Japan, show a promising future for the sector.
On Monday, in the United States, the president of the National Black Farmers Association, John Boyd Jr., said the farmers are getting crushed under President Biden's policies and criticized the government for sending millions overseas while farmers are going bankrupt. In this sense, Boyd Jr. denounced that the neglect and disparity faced especially by black farmers in the face of alarming foreclosure rates and rising farmland prices. Precisely, Boyd called for a reassessment of priorities to ensure farmers' survival and food security in the future. In the meantime, the social activist assured that investing in farmers is investing in the nation's future food security. The National Association of Black Farmers platform denounced the crisis facing America's black farmers to draw the attention of local governments to the fact that funding to foreign countries in the military sector should not take priority over the U.S. agricultural sector. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Tuesday, in the United Kingdom, activists rallied in front of the London High Court before the final appeal of journalist Julian Assange against his extradition to the United States. In this regard, Julian Assange's lawyers are launching a final attempt to fight against the cyber activist extradition to the United States, where he could face life imprisonment if convicted of espionage charges. The 52-year-old founder of WikiLeaks is facing a trial in the United States for exposing U.S. war crimes after publishing secret military and diplomatic files. If he loses, Assange will have exhausted all the United Kingdom's appeals and will enter the extradition process, although his team has indicated that he will appeal to the European courts. In the framework of the mobilization outside the London High Court, Assange's wife reiterates that Julian needs his freedom.
We have 2 big days ahead. We don't know what to expect. But you're here because the world is watching. They have to know they can't get away with this. Julian needs his freedom, and we all need the truth. Thank you.
Still, Assange added that Julian is a political prisoner and his life is at risk.
Is an admission by the United States that they now criminalize investigative journalism. It's an attack on all journalists all over the world. It's an attack on the truth, and it's an attack on the public's right to know. Julian is a political prisoner and his life is at risk.
Dozens of supporters holding Free Julian Assange banners held a noisy protest outside the United States Embassy in Berlin on Tuesday, warning of the consequences if Assange could face if extradited to the U.S. prison system.
Julian Assange is now really threatened with extradition to the United States, and in the U.S. he will face even worse prison conditions, and he should be free. And that's what we want to demand here today in front of the United States Embassy, loud and clear.
Following a proposal made by Norwegian lawmaker Sophie Marhaug, the Australian journalist and WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 2024. The declarations made by Marhaug to the Norwegian newspaper Dagbladet were that Assange had exposed Western war crimes and made important contributions to peace. Marhaug called the journalist a political prisoner and said he should be honored, not persecuted. The Australian journalist is being held on remand in a United Kingdom prison and is charged by the United States with 18 counts of espionage and computer intrusion for publications that revealed human rights violations by the U.S. military in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.